All right, we get the views now of Phakamile Hlubi, who was courtside for eNCA today. Phakamile, good evening to you. Let's get closer to Van Rensburg's testimony now, talking about it being impossible for someone to get into the house through that bathroom window. What does it tell us about Oscar Pistorius' psyche?
Well, you know, that's a good point, Iman, and I think that's exactly what Van Rensburg was trying to convey today, is that there's obviously a certain level of paranoia that Pistorius has, and we've seen this. I mean, he's a gun collector. He's already said in his bail application that on that night he was fearful, and the very first thing that he did in his account anyway is that he heard a noise and he went and he reached for his gun. So what essentially the fact that that Van Rensburg has pointed out that there's just no way that somebody could have come in through that window tells us that Pistorius is quite a paranoid individual.
He's talking about an irrational fear in some ways there.
Yeah.
We also saw pictures today, Phakamile, of a shirtless Pistorius standing on those bloodied prosthetic legs. Tell us more about Van Rensburg's findings and specifically around Pistorius' demeanor when he got to the scene.
Those pictures were quite dramatic, especially when they came up in court. You saw this image of Pistorius. I mean, it was literally moments after Reeva Steenkamp had died. He's standing there, he has no shirt on, there's blood on his arm. And one of the things that Van Rensburg spoke about is that at the time when he arrived on the scene, Pistorius was distraught. He was beside himself. He was constantly crying. When he tried to speak to him, he wouldn't utter a word, not because he was ignoring him, but because he was so overcome with emotion. It was that kind of a night.
And what was, very quickly, Pistorius' reaction when he was declared a suspect and then handcuffed?
There was that shock at the fact that, you know, Van Rensburg had now said that he felt like he had enough evidence to arrest him, and subsequently later on he was arrested and taken to the police station. So it was quite a significant moment already by then that this indeed was the man that they had already identified as the person who killed Reeva Steenkamp.
Well, a harrowing morning there by all accounts. We'll leave it there for the moment, Jeremy. Just ahead, we'll tell you about a missing watch and some careless police work by officers on the scene. And thanks for joining us for this comprehensive wrap of day 10 of the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. So most of the cross-examination of Colonel Skhumbi van Rensburg focused on the way police carried out their work after Reeva Steenkamp was shot dead. He was questioned about the way police treated some of the evidence, including that now infamous toilet door. He says they decided to take down that door because it was the most valuable piece of evidence and they didn't want it to go missing. Van Rensburg also testified as to why it was kept in his office.
We decided on the 15th, Friday, after we received information that some of the newspapers is willing to pay between 30 and 60,000 for a photo of the door. Also, that was not the main reason, but we realized we had to do something very quick because it could happen that someone's going to take a photo. Already we had the experience of a missing watch. So we decided immediately to take down the door. Now, the door is the most valuable evidence.
Okay, if you just take it a bit slower. You decided to take down the door.
Yeah, we decided to take down. The door is the most valuable evidence exhibit on the scene because it indicated the shooting holes. The disease was behind this door when she was shot. So that was the main reason exhibit it had to be sheathed. But when we received the information on Friday, we decided we'll do it immediately. Now we had a challenge. We couldn't find anything that really fit, the door can fit in because it's a very big door as you see. So we made arrangements that we take body bags. Now, I personally drive to Bronkhorstspruit and got body bags, different sizes of the body bag, and then only the biggest body bag the door could fit in. So, Lieutenant Colonel van der Merwe from Forensics, as well as Warrant Officer van Staden, they took down the door. Now, before we took down the door, I asked the question, if you took down the door, can we really fit it back in the same position? And they said, that is very easy. You just take a screwdriver and you just take it off and then you can refit it again. There will not be a problem refitting and assembling it again. So they took down the door, my lady, and they also sealed it in the evidence bag with seals. When they come outside, we had a problem about the vehicle that can really fit this door into. So we had to contact a long wheelbase police vehicle to fit it in at the back. But as we're carrying this door, my lady, the loose panels of the door was shifting. And we was afraid that it's going to cut the body back because it's a plastic body back. Then I said to them, we have to be very careful because as soon as this panels is cutting this, then we got a problem about securing this part of evidence. So we put it in the vehicle, and the vehicle was, the constable took it to Bosco Police Station, where it been handed in SCP-13 as exhibit. Now, on a Friday, in a station, the big exhibits is kept in the charge office. There is a temporary facility, but in this case, there was not a big place. You couldn't find it. You would stand in the charge office in the passage. And that is where I found it when I arrived at the police station.
Still sealed?
So
Was it still sealed when you arrived at the police?
It was still sealed when I arrived there. So I take the responsibility. Standing orders is clear. It is the responsibility of the station commander to safeguard the property as well as exhibits. So I signed for the exhibit and I took it to my office where I kept it.
And then admitting a serious breach, Jeremy van Rensburg then told the court how Oscar Pistorius' gun was handled by a ballistics expert without gloves.
After the photographer was finished in the bathroom, we allow access to the ballistic expert for the reason of the ballistics, the firearm, and the seizure of the firearm. So I was present when the firearm expert at that stage from the ballistic unit, Lieutenant Colonel Matu, was in the bathroom. I was busy talking on my cell phone, arranging and communicating with some of my superiors and also as well as Warrant Officer Botha, when I heard that the firearm has been cocked. So I turned my head to where the firearm has been cocked to see what is going on. And at that particular moment, the ballistic expert was having the firearm in his hand without gloves. He already took out the magazine was in his hand, and the firearm was in his hand. So I stopped immediately talking and I asked him, "What are you doing?" And then he turned his head to me and he was looking, and then he realized there was no hand gloves on. And then he said, "Sorry." And he put the magazine back in the firearm and he put it back on the carpet, on the this bathroom carpet. And then he took out his hand gloves from his pocket that was hanging out here in the breast pocket, and he put it on his hands, and then again he took the firearm and he made it safe and he continued with his. So immediately I was very angry, so immediately I turned around and I also informed Warrant Officer van Staden of what had happened, and I'm not very pleased with what I saw.
Well, the embarrassment certainly didn't end there. Van Rensburg going on to speak about a watch that went missing from the crime scene.
My lady, the left bottom corner, the watch on the left bottom corner was missing. If one would have looked, this is the one that is now being indicated on the screen. And I turned around and I asked Warrant Officer van Staden, did he know anything about this watch? He told me that when the accused sister came up, she requested that she could want to take one of the watches. And she took that particular watch. All the other 7 watches were still in place. The watch on the right, if you're looking on the right top corner, the one with the green, I was looking particularly to all those watches, and I then mentioned again to all the whole forensic team that those watches is a big concern of mine because it's expensive. They must look after this thing. And then one of the forensic experts at the back, I don't know who mentioned it, mentioned that this particular watch, this a green and black one on the top right-hand corner, was the value between 50 and 100,000 rand. And then I say, you see what I mean? We have to look after the property in this house. This is expensive property. So we left the room. I've exited the room first, and then the rest was followed. Some stay behind to clean up and to fetch all the things to go down. So I went down to the garage. While we were all packing up and getting our things ready to leave, Warrant Officer van Staden came into the garage, and he mentioned that one of these watches is missing. And I said, what do you mean? What other watch? There's one missing because you handed it over. He said, no, there's another one that is missing. I said, but I can't believe it. We were just there. How can this watch be gone? Immediately, I give you instruction that everybody had to come to the garage. We body search everyone. We search all the bags each and every forensic expert had on his possession. We searched the whole house through again back to the main bedroom. We even searched the vehicles of all the forensic experts on the scene without giving anyone permission to leave. We couldn't find the watch.
I can tell you, Jeremy, that as that testimony evolved throughout the day, there was tension between the witness and the defense team. Well, Barry Roo wrapped up his cross-examination of Van Rensburg by using photographs to show that some evidence was moved around in Pistorius's house while police were still at the scene.
It says, when there's a duvet, it then tells us that there was interference. It says, photo taken on 14 February 2013, duvet cover spread open by main bedroom, so that whoever looks at the photo will know there's a change. That's not a scene photo, but it's something else. There is some action to that photo. There was some change to the object. You see that?
I see that, Maria.
However, when I go to 109 and I think of the person I'm looking at this photo, what do you see then? It says, photo taken, cell phone. I would have thought it should say, cell phone open to be visible, to give a fair reflection, not so?
I agree.
All right, day 10, Phakamile Hlubi, and again it seems like basic police investigation procedure was flouted. Just talk us through what are significant and embarrassing breaches.
Embarrassing, correct, Iman. I mean, the fact that you have a ballistics expert handling a gun, I mean, this gun is a key piece of evidence, but he handled it without a glove. I mean, those are just basic principles, and those are some of the things that were flouted. The loss of the watch, for instance, that is certainly a problem for the state.
I mean, it got to a point where Van Rensburg then had to order a pat-down of the present police officers to establish if somebody had taken it.
The irony of having police officers being suspected of stealing, it's really an embarrassing scenario.
All right, let's talk about some of this tension between Van Rensburg and Barry Roo during that cross-examination. And it seems the spectre of former investigating officer Hilton Botha looms large.
Certainly, they made a lot of reference to Hilton Botha, and we still don't know whether Hilton Botha is actually going to be called to testify. Barry Roo asked that question in open court, and now was very clear. He said, at this stage, I'm not willing to answer that. I'm not willing to say whether or not I'm going to bring him into court. That was the first thing. The other thing was the accusation from the defense, saying that you, Van Rensburg, are here because you are actually standing in for Hilton Botha, so that the state doesn't have to cross-examine him, and those are some of the things that were playing themselves out in court.
I mean, he was challenged about whether he is giving testimony on behalf of Hilton Botha to things that he perhaps himself wasn't privy to.
Precisely, because you had conflicting statements. Roo went and read out statements from other police officers who claimed that Hilton Botha arrived after Van Rensburg arrived at the scene. So those were some of the tensions that were playing themselves out in court, and you could see that Van Rensburg was actually getting quite frustrated on the stand.
Know more. eNCA.com